I'm going to present something on Life Terra, which is an initiative that is now preparing for the 3rd season. So it's a very young project, and basically it started me and other people, but I was particularly shocked a few years ago when I found out about this guy in Hawaii who was measuring since, I think, the 60s, yes, the amount of CO2 concentration in the air and the graph that resulted from it. And then they also started measuring, so that's the blue line. They also measured temperature, of course, and then they also started measuring the pH of the ocean, so the acidification of the ocean. And all these trends together, sort of, being involved in sustainability activities, the trend was very clear that if we do not change, if we do not do something about this, we are really on the wrong track with a lot of potential negative impacts. And just to show you, because this goes to 10 to 15, this is just the last graph that's on this website, and you see that the trend continues. So we are really at historic levels of concentration of CO2 in the air, of rising temperatures, and of, therefore, these very sort of climatic shocks that are now happening more and more. And I think that we felt it all last summer more and more, this summer actually. But sort of a continuous trend of more and more environmental disasters that we have to adapt to more droughts and fires. Me living in Spain particularly, it was an incredible summer. We had a negative record of the amount of hectares burned, and it's really unbelievable. I mean, we plant hundreds of hectares like you guys do, and then that burns down in a few hours, so it's like, oh, what an incredible battle we have against, sort of ahead of us in order to try and remedy this. And it also reminds me about this famous cartoon that you see a lot during the COVID times. First it was COVID and recession, and then they added the wave of climate change, but also biodiversity collapse. And that is something that maybe all of you are aware of, but very few people in the general public have realized that. But this whole biodiversity collapse is something that is really going to have major consequences for us in terms of food production, in terms of overall resilience of ecosystems. And that's why also with Life Terra we really try to give an impulse to local biodiversity restoration, look at areas that are really degraded, try to restore them back, and using a lot of different bushes and trees in order to try to create different strata of trees and try to restore that area. So Life Terra as an initiative was born out of the frustration that a lot of governments talk, and a lot of, also sometimes corporations, they talk, but there seems to be very little action. There's a huge gap between what Brussels wants and what actually happens in the field, and sort of a disconnect between, I would say, the average European citizen with the national authorities, and even with Brussels. That's very far away ivory tower. So we said, why don't we try to do something which is much more citizen-driven? And because the moment when you raise your hand, and you saw it in the videos, people will come.
Yes. There
has to be somebody who organizes it, who looks for the land, who makes the arrangements, who makes sure that the seedlings are there, that the land's prepared, that the shovels are there, that there's people with enthusiasm to help them teach how to plant, and then people will come, and they will be very happy participating. And all these reactions, I get energy from it. I'm proud for my kids. All of that we see everywhere in Europe, and this is a natural reaction. This is what happens if you allow people and make them enthusiastic for this thing. So we said, a completely crazy number, 500 million trees. If we are a bit generous and we count Europe as a big community, we could have 500 million trees, 500 million people. We all go out on our Saturday morning with our tree, we plant it, boom, 500 million, done, right? Of course, it's not so easy in practice. A lot of people do not care yet, and to organize such a massive thing will take a long time. But anyway, we sort of made it sort of our, big, hairy, audacious goal, as they say, and see how far we get in the coming years. But we do see that there's a huge appetite in society to get into action. Of course, we build in there also things about technology, about education. I think most of the programs do that. And, well, I don't think we have enough time to discuss all that, but these are just some impressions of events. It look very similar to what you do, maybe smaller. Our record was 4,000 people last year. It was complete chaos, I have to be honest, in Madrid. But people had a lot of fun. But I think that 3,000 people like you do, that's very ambitious. You need a lot of volunteers to try and organize that in a good way. We do events with, most of our events are 20, 40, 50, 100 people, maybe more or less. And we did around 500 last year in 13 countries. And so we really try to go in the different countries, really make it a European project that we can all feel a little bit more proud about, maybe hopefully the leading role that Europe can play in the fight against climate change and also in adaptation on what we plant. So we think about different species, those kind of questions. And the idea is to start in a country, then with trial projects and see how we can expand with local partners. What is perhaps the most important part is that whenever I organized tree plantings for friends and family, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they all loved it and they said afterwards, okay, how are the trees doing? Expecting me to go every Saturday or every 2 months to see how the trees were doing. And so that kind of made us think like, people want transparency. They want a guy like you to go back 2 years later, 3 years later and film it and show evidence that what we did was worthwhile. My tree, what I planted, I see people write names on the protectors, these things. No, I did that, or my family did this. So we said, why don't we, everybody has a phone, yeah? You plant 2, 3 trees, you plant 5 trees, you plant 8 trees that day, you take 8 pictures of your tree. You connect it with the species, the GPS of your phone says where the tree is, and then we have all these data points where we can hopefully in the future track the trees. And so somebody has in their own dashboard, the trees that you planted one day, or you come back from another event, you have 10 trees here, 8 trees there. That's the idea, to give more transparency to that. So you see how you can sort of use technology and give people an idea of where these trees are. And also for companies that are, that you can interest them to become donors, it's a very interesting tool because we give them the tree dashboard. This is an example of EY, the accountancy firm and the management consulting firm. They are really trying to get all their European subsidiaries and offices to be involved in this project, and they all go under the same banner, and it's sort of a way to, we even have offices competing against each other, the Madrid-Barcelona effect, that they try to, we want to plan more than you guys do, and so they try to create a healthy competition around trees. But most importantly probably is the transparency, that it's not somewhere far away in Africa or where people do not trust it, but it's somewhere that you can go to, you can zoom in to the individual tree, and you would have there the pictures of what was planted, and hopefully in the future we can put layers of information on top of that. Of course we have some corporate support, and we see that everywhere, even I think the same reactions that you have, that it is for companies not enough anymore to talk about sustainability and have their nice ESG report or something like that, or to buy carbon credits on the internet and be done with it. Employees now, they demand action, they demand real, real tangible stuff, and so volunteering is one part, but also, we have campaigns like a tree for a recruit, or a tree for an employee, or these kind of things, but then it becomes your tree, so that's I think is an interesting concept. And also in COVID times, of course, people were working from home, and then the fact that you can go together outside in a safe environment and sort of meet again, that was very important for also team building. And so we call it sustainable team building events, and that works very well. Then, thanks to the LIFE program, we have also some institutional support from Brussels, from our friends in Brussels, and that helps to really, spread the message that tree planting is fun, and not only important, but also fun, and that you can have sort of a very good effect from that long term for your organization, for your family, for your community, basically. We don't do this alone. We are 16 partners from 8 countries. including NGOs, some NGOs, nurseries, universities, research centers, implementation partners, and in the other countries we try to make alliances with NGOs like you are here today, and the hope is that we try to bring forward education, implementation, technology, of course, and communication. And then what I was thinking about the incredible potential that you guys have, driving around was this space. I now know more that legislation is sometimes a burden in order to get these projects approved. But apart from some sandy soils in the south, you have overall very good soils. You have a good climate compared to Spain, for example, where it's really difficult to get these trees going. You have, in principle, a fantastic opportunity, I think, in Romania to make a real impact in terms of amount of trees versus citizens, in order to have sort of proportionate impact on Europe. Of course, also it gives a lot of job opportunities, not only the planting, also preparing and the planting, but also the maintenance. What do we do with these trees in 40, 50 years? That really creates important opportunities for rural areas to have sort of a better bioeconomy base, and this whole Plan B book, I think, is very much around that. And it's often overlooked, you know. It's not just a tree. A tree is basically sort of a symbol for awareness and for change, but also for future jobs. Then I understand that also there's a lot of funding available from Brussels that you're probably aware of, but that could really help to leverage these projects, make them bigger. So if companies pay a part, that co-funding from Brussels can be very important and really ensure that you go from 2 million trees to maybe 20 million trees. And then of course we are also studying the whole idea of biodiversity, how that can be valued, so that we have, of course, a carbon credit potential income, which is still very difficult in Europe, very costly. But there's a lot of people looking at biodiversity. How do we value that? We even have initiatives that are looking at water retention, water retention capacity in soils. How can we prevent flooding, these kind of things, and put a value on that in order to help finance these projects even better. So that's a lot of sort of opportunities, I would say, right now at the moment, in order to scale this and grow bigger. So for us, we are ambitious. We want to expand. We have access to some funding that might help some of the projects to accelerate. We also have an interesting experiment where we try to look at very climate resilient trees from the south of Europe, to plant them in particular projects to see how they perform, to see if they can deal with less water and be more resilient to climate change. So trees, oaks that use 30% less water than maybe the native oak, to see if that could be a solution. That is sometimes controversial, but we're willing to experiment with that, of course, with good monitoring, and so try to bring innovation to the sector. Of course, our registration tool is for free, so if any NGO wants to use those trees, to register the trees, we don't count them double. You can see that in the next slide. We have two counters. One is for partner trees and one is for our own trees, and so that's free of charge for any NGO in order to help you create more transparency if needed. And so I got 81 trees. All the other hundreds of trees, they take them out of my dashboard and we put them up for the donors. But I'm very proud of my one tree that I have in Romania, you see there. This is my tree in Romania. I said, don't take it out of my dashboard. I'm very proud of that. And you see here the different counters that we have in order to register those trees and to avoid double counting. Okay, so that's it. Please email me or look me up on LinkedIn. I'm very looking forward to cooperate more with you guys. And again, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here back in Romania and hope to be back many times here. Thanks.